So heads up, this one is going to be kind of depressing, and I'm probably not going to watch my language too much. So if that's not going to be your cup of tea, I understand. But I'm not sure why. I just feel the need to put out a video about this. So Norm Macdonald is dead as of today, and it really hit me hard. It seems like each one just hits even harder than the last one. Um, Robin Williams, I think, was one that really, really, really floored me. This one's pretty tragic too. Mostly because it kind of came out of nowhere. I guess he had cancer and was hiding it, from everybody. Um, I think that what made it, hit even harder is that this is literally the same day that I found out that Jeff Bridges, his cancer is in remission. So I was actually really happy, for the first quarter of the day, because I love Jeff Bridges. He's an amazing actor. He's hilarious in comedies. He's just riveting in dramas. And so it almost kind of felt like Final Destination, where it was like, okay, well, Jeff beat cancer, so Death has this empty box in this checklist, so somebody's got to go. Is what it felt like. That's not what I truly believe. That rationally I know that's not how death works, but emotionally that's really kind of how it felt. And I hope that doesn't come across badly about Jeff Bridges, should have been him instead of Norm or anything. That's not what I mean at all. I don't want anybody that I admire to that I love and admire to die at all from cancer or anything. But I guess what makes this one kind of crazy is um, Norm Macdonald actually had a really, really good routine about cancer. And if you haven't heard it already, I'm going to leave a link in the bottom. I want to just fill the entire description full of links of some hilarious bits, that Norm Macdonald's done. Most of this video is just going to be me reminiscing about some of my favorite moments from Norm Macdonald. So, again, if that's going to be boring to you, if you're not a fan, I get it, and, maybe skip to the next video. But if you are a fan, you're probably just as devastated as I am. If you don't know who I'm referring to, then I really, really recommend that you look him up. There's got to be hundreds of hours of clips of him on YouTube, from his Saturday Night Live days to being on, late night talk shows, and there's some of the best, stuff out there. You could go down a whole rabbit hole. So I'm only going to do a link for this one joke, because it's so bittersweet now that this has happened to him. But basically, he had a joke about cancer, and so the joke started off talking about how people, used to just die from it. Now people are saying, oh, they lost a long, hard fought battle with cancer, and he made fun of using that terminology, where he was like, so my Uncle Bert has cancer, and I went in to check on him and see how it was going. So I guess how you fight cancer is you lay in bed and you watch Matlock all day, or something to that effect. And what's hilarious is that's actually a relatively older joke of his, and and I just recently read an article saying that doctors are going to start changing the terminology, because if you get cancer and you don't beat it, then it makes it feel and sound like you did something wrong, like you didn't fight hard enough. And what's funny is that a lot of stuff that Norm Macdonald will poke fun at, usually in the end he's kind of on the right side of history, and that's definitely one of them. And so he then goes on to say, it's like, well, if you die from cancer, well, the cancer dies with you, so that's not a loss, that's a draw. So today, I'm honoring Norm Macdonald's draw with cancer, and just gonna say a couple, you know, of my favorite things about him, and call it good. But again, I don't know why I feel the need to to put this out there. This might just be more for me than for whoever's watching. I hope that it'll have one more person that didn't know about his brilliance to check him out. But this is kind of mostly to help me process it, and yeah. So if you're not already aware, something that makes a great comic is that you got to find where the line is in society, and it's always changing. Which is why if you look at a lot of old stand-up, Um, it doesn't really hold up. Like, Lenny Bruce, back in the day was, would go to jail for some of the routines that he does. And now you watch him, and it's, very, very tame and not quite as entertaining. But that's because the lines moved so far from back then. You know, so a good comedian finds right where the line is and just comes right up to it, and kind of shines a light on the ridiculousness of the world. And so obviously, if you do that, oftentimes you're going to cross over it every once in a while. And so you just kind of try and get that dance of where the line is. And Norm Macdonald never operated like that. He was fearless, 100% fearless. He only ever found the line by stepping over it. Um, that's one of the things that made him great. Uh, he lost numerous jobs because of it. I'm pretty sure that is a big factor in why a lot of his movies never made any money. Most notably, Dirty Work, which to this day I think is still one of the funniest comedies. There's comedies, and then there's the comedies where it seems like every 30 seconds there is a banger of a joke, and this was one of those. I there's so many iconic scenes. Like, just off the top of my head, I think one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen is a scene in which all of the humor, all of the dialogue, all of the action is happening 100% off camera. The only thing that you see on camera is two guys holding fish, and then just hearing this destruction happening off camera. And when you see the scene, it'll make more sense. But like, basically, he managed to get an entire scene that's audio only, and it goes on for quite a while. Still just hilarious, hilarious scene. I mean, the one-liners throughout that whole movie. Again, like I said, I'm not. This is going to be kind of some not safe for work dialogue, but one of the most quoted lines I think is from the Pop's character, where he was like, "Back in my day, we didn't have any of these fancy contraception methods, like pulling out." Like, just he was very. I guess I could see how somebody might dislike him as a comic. It might not be the brand of humor. He might have come across as too brash, and just a little bit too controversial. But that's hands down one of the things I love about him, and why I think that to this day a lot of his jokes are still hilarious, because he crossed the line way back in the day. So now it's still kind of a line, and so his jokes can still hit. And yeah, like I said, he was fearless. Like, I'm pretty sure that he lost his job at SNL because the whole time that the O.J. Simpson trial was going on, he never basically multiple times per episode he would talk about how O.J.'s murderer. Like, he wasn't waiting for the verdict. He was just flat out saying he was. Most people, I think, years later, can look back and say, yeah, that's probably how it went down. But he was one of the first to say it and not be shy about it. In fact, when the verdict came out that O.J. Simpson was innocent, how he broke the news story on Weekend Update was, "This just in: murder is now legal in Southern California." The dude was the best. And he wasn't just fearless with like saying it how it is. He was also fearless in embracing the uncomfortable. So a lot of times he would go on late night talk shows. I think I can remember twice at least with Conan O'Brien, where he will tell the most longest convoluted story just to get to a dad joke one liner. Like, so you would take an old dad joke that's been around for years, right? And then he would like Norm Macdonald it up by making the joke last like about 4 minutes straight, just to get to the punchline at the end. Like, he's made up characters, he's made up backstories, he's made up like grief and like trauma on the subject of the joke, all just so that you're screaming at him to get to the point, and then the point is just a little ha pun. And if anything, that just made it all the more funny. And I actually remember one time when I did start to get into joke writing, I came up with what I thought was an amazing joke. And this is a phenomenon that happens with joke writing and stuff. It's just it's rare, but you got to really be careful because it is a thing. But you'll hear a joke, you'll forget that you heard it from somebody years. I'm talking like maybe even decades later. Something will happen to you, and then you will think, "Oh, well, here's a way to look at it. That's a funny joke. And then you write it down, thinking it's completely original, and you could even be using it on stage until either somebody confronts you, or in what happened with my case, I watched his. I think it was his first special. I think it was like a 1983 special, where the joke that I had written was in the special, and I realized, oh, I saw that when I was a really young kid. You know, um, watching Comedy Central, and completely forgot about it, and it was still relevant. The 20 maybe years later that I decided to write my original joke for myself. So it's a real phenomenon that happens. But again, it kind of just shows how you can even watch some of his older stuff, and it's still pretty darn hilarious. Um, Speaking of SNL, if you were ever a fan of Celebrity Jeopardy, that was his baby, because he wanted to showcase his Burt Reynolds impression, um, which between him and Sean Connery were arguably the funniest guests on the Celebrity Jeopardy. A sketch so funny that Will Ferrell plays the straight man, which says a lot. But oh yeah, and the Burt Reynolds impression he did years later on My Name Is Earl. So that's a nice little Easter egg for you too. Um, but yeah, even his '80s special, would just have such great jokes like I mean, go watch it. But it's like I think one of them is cliff diving. There's a sport, huh? There's two levels: grand champion and stuff on a rock. You know, or the joke where he's talking about how his dad catches him smoking cigarettes behind the shed, so he sits him at the table and makes him smoke a cigar about the size of his arm. And that was about the time I started smoking cigars. And then later on, when his dad catches him behind the shed smoking pot, and then he injects him with heroin. So just absurdist, jokes like that. People nowadays, probably know him most recently from maybe say an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, where again, never one to back down from shitting on celebrities acting shitty. O.J. Simpson back in the day. Well, when the Bill Cosby came out, he said he was talking to another comic, and the other comic was just like, the worst part about that is just the hypocrisy, you know. And Norm was like, well, I don't think that's the worst part. I think the worst part is the raping, like absolutely fearless guy, absolutely fearless. Others might know him from Norm Macdonald Live, which he had, I believe, I can't remember what the original platform was that he had for a long time with Adam Egget, but then he had just a single season on Netflix, and then immediately got fired again because he supported Roseanne. And then he also had the great stand-up, which was actually an advertisement for his latest stand-up special that he had on the talk show, the joke about Germany, which is already iconic. I think in Comedians in Cars, Seinfeld said it's got to be one of the most talked about jokes among other comics. And the latest special that he put out, which I think also debuted on Netflix, which is Hitler's Dog, another gossip and trickery. I believe I'm getting the title right. It was just great, and just more evidence that he never changed. He never shied away from making like crazy jokes, like admitting that you're a murderer by being sarcastic, and like so many great ones. And yeah, like even when he wasn't being crossing the line, like I think I think one of his most treasured moments is got to be like, first of all, I think that he did like a presidential roast or something like that with like Clinton or something. But arguably one of the funniest ones is when he did the Bob Saget roast. So they contacted him to do the roast of Bob Saget, and so he was just like, well, I don't really want to do that. He's my friend. And they were just like, like he was like, all right, well, I mean, what should I do? And so they're like, just try and be as shocking and dirty and harmful as possible, because that's basically what they had become at that point. Like, it used to be that they're all friends with each other and they would poke fun, and it was all in good jest. And then pretty soon, once it got to be my generation of the roasts, it's just like the meanest, cruelest, most racist stuff that you can possibly think of. Some people that did it well, like Anthony Jeselnik and Lisa Lampanelli, the ones that are masters at it, that's what they're known for. Kind of got away with it, but the rest of it just felt mean, and often the jokes wouldn't land because it's just like that doesn't sound like good natured fun. So when they basically told Norm Macdonald, it's like just be as like shocking and controversial as possible. He was like, oh, it'd be funny to do the opposite, and he then goes to proceed to do like such old timey, like soft hitting jokes that the whole audience just was not having it. But I mean, you could tell that like almost all the comedians were just absolutely laughing their butt off. I mean, you know, uh, it, and that's kind of something that comedians do. It's just like, let's say that you're up on stage and you are just bombing. You're just eating a dick, and the whole audience is just not on your side. The hardest person laughing is going to be one of your fellow comics in the back of the room, laughing at how badly you were bombing. And it's not a mean thing. It's just kind of like a, you know, we've all been there. I know how that feels, and I can't help but laugh at it because we're gonna laugh at it later, and I know that next time you go up on stage, you're gonna kill. This is just an off night for you, so you're darn right I'm gonna laugh at your expense. And so, in a way, Norm kind of made himself the butt of the joke, so that Saget could have a few minutes where he wasn't you know being joked about that he was like raping the Olsen twins and stuff. I mean, like a lot of them were just not really funny, just like not only completely untrue, but just like so like just bad for the sake of being bad, not because they're actually a decently structured joke. But obviously, like despite the fact that he didn't have a filter, I mean, I think anybody that knew him and was friends with him, yeah, he was 100% unpredictable, but you could always trust him, you know, to be a nice guy, a sweet guy. Like I don't think that he ever had any Me Too, um, you know, being mean to an aide, behind the scenes, like story about him. He was just a sweetheart through and through, a naturally funny, completely, out of his gourd. But what good comedian isn't? But not in any any crazy like like alcoholic beating your wife kind of crazy. He was just like a wholesome dude. The most controversial thing about him has to be his jokes, and that's about it. Like I don't think anybody ever had an unkind word to say about him, and the people that knew him loved him, and his humor is one of those rare once in a one in a million kind of things, because like I said, most comedians have to be pretty fearless and definitely have to find out where the line is by going over it occasionally. But he didn't come up to the line. Like he treated it like when you do the long jumping, like the line was where his feet had to leave the air, and he wanted to see how far he could get off to the other side. And for that, I just I commend him, and I thank him so much for it. I mean, that I had Dirty Work on VHS, and that is a movie that one of the few VHSs that I probably wore the tape out rewatching. Um, that if I had a DVD, it probably would be completely unreadable because it'd be so scuffed up from rewatching. So yeah, if you don't already know, or even if you do, I bet you, even if you think you're a pretty hardcore Norm Macdonald fan, that there's some clips out there. Like for instance, the cancer one. I had to hear once he actually died from cancer. I heard that cancer joke for the first time today, and I wish I had heard it before, because I probably would have laughed a lot harder then, and then it would have been bittersweet. But now, the first and only time I ever heard that joke, it was bittersweet because it was such a spot on take on cancer, and in a way, I kind of feel like um, I think that makes it just because this is just such a depressing such a depressing episode, but I love that joke exists, because in a way it's almost like his middle finger to the thing that finally took him down. Was he was just like, now that this joke happened, even if I die of cancer, I didn't die of cancer, I had a draw with cancer. And that's just the best thing ever. And I love that he didn't die of cancer, he had a draw with cancer. And I love that even back then, he realized that saying fighting with cancer is one of the stupidest ways to put it, because you're not really, getting in the ring, and it isn't like if you do finally succumb to it that you weren't fighting hard. It makes it seem like, oh, you should have tried better, you coward. Um, I don't know. I could go on and on, but I would just probably. I'm already starting to repeat myself, so I just probably repeat myself. But I just wanted to be one of the probably millions of outpouring of videos that you're going to see in the next couple of weeks. Just shouting out Norm Macdonald. There's probably going to be a whole bunch of reactions to some of his bits and stuff, and I'll get lost in the sea like I generally do, but that's fine. I look forward to seeing how many people, you know, try and keep his memory alive by doing their own Norm Macdonald videos and reposting some of his old bits and stuff. And yeah, this one sucked. It always sucks, but this one, so some of them hit just a little bit differently sometimes. And yeah, like I said, I think this one did just because I had a little hope in the world with Jeff Bridges hitting cancer. I don't think that anybody, I don't even know if his close family knew that he had cancer. Like I said, he kept it hidden for what appears to be years, and it just sucks. And the world's just going to be a little less funny without him. But he definitely put a lot of content out there that we should hopefully be able to enjoy forever. And and yeah, Norm, thank you for the laughs, uh, and you'll be missed. And I honestly think that's about all anybody can hope that is said about them when they're gone. Like that beautiful Keanu Reeves quote, that when he was asked, what do you think happens when we die? And he goes, I know that the ones who love us will miss us. And I couldn't put any better than that.